Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon for my sins, and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. We see you today, Jesus, in the Gospel, going up to Jerusalem and talking to your disciples about your passion and death. And no sooner had you finished explaining it than the mother of James and John approached you with a request. Command that these two sons of mine sit one at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom. Well, they didn't get it. If they wanted to rule with you, they would have to drink from the same chalice, the chalice of your passion and death. And then we read how the other 10 became indignant at the two brothers. Maybe because they all wanted the same places on your right and left. So you summoned them and explained how this ruling in your kingdom was going to work. You said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones are tyrants over them. It will not be so among you. But whoever wishes to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." So ruling in your kingdom, Jesus, will not be by throwing our weight around like a boss, but by serving others like the Son of Man. We are in Lent, and we keep in mind those 3 legs of Lent: prayer, fasting or sacrifices, mortification, and almsgiving, charity. I like to call it more self-giving. In fact, when I asked in the primary school with the little ones if they knew what almsgiving meant, a little Spanish girl gave me an interesting response. She didn't know what alms were, but alms sounded to her like Spanish word for alma, which means soul. So she thought alma giving and said out loud, soul giving. Well, not quite, but interesting approach. Self-giving, giving our souls to others with all our soul. And as you tell us today, Jesus, in your kingdom we rule not by climbing up the ladder, but by climbing down it, by serving. If you want to be great, be a servant. Spirit of service. I like to say to young people that S.O.S. stands precisely for Spirit of Service. S.O.S. So when people are sending out an S.O.S., they are basically asking for help. But these S.O.S. messages are not always loud and clear. So we need to pay attention to the signs, to see what people need, even before they themselves realize they need our help. Like mums, who know what the babies need, even if they haven't asked for it yet, or not with words anyway. And just like mums, we need to learn to read the signs, to discover what people need, and serve even before they ask for it. The Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve, and so do we. Interestingly enough, the saint we celebrate today is a great example for us, and can help us to pray now. St. John of God was born as João Duarte Cidade in Portugal in 1495, 500 years ago. Somehow, one day, when John was 8 years of age, he disappeared. He soon found himself a homeless orphan in the streets of Oropesa, near Toledo, in Spain. There he became a shepherd. When he was 22, he joined the army, While in service, one day, he was appointed to guard an enormous amount of loot, much of which had disappeared by the time he was relieved, and so he was found guilty of dereliction of duty and condemned to death. And thank goodness a good captain had pity on him and gave him a second chance. So to cut the story short, he left the army and went back to being a shepherd for 4 years. Then he rejoined the army for 14 more years. As you can see, he didn't know what to do with his life, really. And one day, when he was already 42 years old, in Granada, he heard St. John of Avila preaching. It took a saint to wake up another saint. And prompted by St. John of Avila, João Cidade repented of his past sins and the time he had wasted, and decided to spend the rest of his life serving the sick and the homeless, caring for the neediest people of the city. He begged for money and rented a house where he tended to the needs of the sick and the poor. For some time he was alone in this charitable work, but he was soon joined by priests and physicians. He used to exchange his cloak with any beggar he chanced to meet. And to put an end to that, the bishop had a religious habit made for him and his followers. And the story goes that on one occasion, he found a sick person lying in the street. He was a strong man himself. He was able to carry the sick person on his back, walking through the streets of Granada. So he did just that. He took the poor man to his house and started tending to him. He washed his wounds and fed him. And they say that when he went to kiss the feet of that sick person, as he usually did, he saw on those feet the marks of the nails that fixed you, Jesus, to the cross. He looked the poor man in the face and saw your loving face, Jesus, smiling at him and saying to him, all the work that you do to serve the poor and the sick, it is I who receives it. It is me that you serve. Now think about it with me in your prayer. Lent is a time of almsgiving, time when we think about others and try to find ways to serve them. As the Son of Man didn't come to be served, but to serve. If we pay attention, we find hundreds of opportunities to serve every day. And for every act of service I do, I can imagine you, Jesus, smiling at me and saying, I receive that act of service. Everything you do for them, you do it to me. Think of those at work, of those at home. For many times we find it easier to be nice to a stranger on the bus or on the train than to those who live in the same home, go to the same class, or who are in the same office. Now, as we finish these 10 minutes, and you probably want to continue your prayer, and I continue mine, we can turn to Mary for help. Mary, my Mother Immaculate, teach me to see the needs of others. Open my eyes to see as you see. To see as you saw your cousin Elizabeth in need of your help before anyone asked for it. As you saw they were running out of wine in that wedding at Cana. Open my eyes, Mary, to see what you see, and to spend my Lent and even the rest of my life serving with joy as your Son, the Son of Man, does. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations that you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask you for help to put them into effect. My Mother Immaculate, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.